the prophet Isaiah. Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? They shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more. Welcome to the Citizen Arts Podcast series, Israeli Voices, Who We Are. Episode 2, Americans and Cookies in the Judean Hills, Racial Meritocracy and Inequality, Past and Present, Real Estate Entrepreneurship, where the land is government-owned, Guiding the Kids through Social Media and Military Commitment, Tel Aviv's Economic Prowess, Mediterranean Beachy Café Vibe, Missile Terrors, Hostage Square Remembrance of the Damaged, Lost, and Missing, and also groundbreaking politically correct feminist influences on journalism, police brutality, gender harmony.
The Judean Hills.
Yeah.
And that looks like a whole new city up ahead.
It's not a new city, it's an old city, but what we're looking at is a new part.
Yep.
The red roofs are the old part of town, and on the left is the new part of town. It's a mixed city with secular, ultra-Orthodox, and modern Orthodox. The new part is only ultra-Orthodox. Built with government subsidies. You will be hearing about government subsidy for ultra-Orthodox. Very sensitive topic.
We've stopped at this outdoor cafe. Actually, it's an oasis of picnic tables among trees with a food truck. Got pizza, yogurt, salads, homemade cookies. Sort of like New York Central Park in the Arizona desert. Young families, kids playing, joyous, carefree. It's such a striking counterpoint to what we saw at Kibbutz Be'eri. Most of the men are wearing kippas, and some have pistols in waist holsters. It's kind of a disconnect for me, but understandable. Here comes the grub. I'm going to start and finish with those cookies.
I got a salad.
That looks really good. You know, I could have done with less carbs. Oh, they were tasty carbs. And more greenery. What you got over there? What's that?
What's it got? Eggplant? Sandwich?
And that's
I don't know.
that's
Pine nuts, almonds, cheese, pesto, tomato, a lot of onions, peppers.
Coke Zero.
You know, looking around, I really had a major misconception. I was expecting everybody in Israel to be on edge, almost in an armed camp, soldiers and guns everywhere. But not threatening or oppressive, just regular folks going about their lives.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. The soldiers, they really blend in. Citizen soldiers. And in Nevo's town, even there, down in the Negev, we were really near the Gaza war zone. Even there was this sense of community and serenity. And what about at Kibbutz Be'eri? They've embraced life. They're dealing with the terrible memories. They're moving on as they remember. How about everybody you speak to mentioning that sense of community? You really feel it. I appreciate that. You know, this is not the only place in the world we've seen this, not by any means, but here it's so palpable.
I think that's because it's people of one religion.
Could be, probably. You go to other places of religion. In India, you get a similar feel in Hindu and Muslim and other religious communities. In China, Confucius, Buddhist, Taoist traditions. By the way, you picking up the American English all around us? How come?
There are many Americans that do Aliyah to Israel, and many settling in communities in Judean Hills. A lot of new business opening there. 15 miles from Jerusalem and 15 miles from Tel Aviv, just in the middle. Don't forget that 45% of the Jewish people is in America, 45% is in Israel, and the rest of the world is 10%. So there's a lot of Jews coming from America to immigrate to Israel to do Aliyah and to become citizens.
You guys going to be in the World Cup this year?
Yeah,
No, we're terrible. We suck.
but the players here make the big bucks?
Yes,
Big bucks.
too much.
Too much?
Yeah.
What's too much? $50 million a year?
No, this is not America.
Or Europe?
All the good players are going to play in Europe.
We're on a terrace behind Nisim's house. Pine trees, citrus trees, orange, lemon. Looks like a vineyard out there. So Nisim, what's the name of this town?
It's called Srigim Leon. Serig is like the vine of the grapes.
You were saying you were born in Israel?
My dad was born in Baghdad. My mom, her family moved to Israel from Libya. They came in 1951. After the war, they moved to a refugee camp in Italy for a few years, until it was an option for them to move to Israel. I was born in a small town in the north of Israel called Afula. It's a mix of Ashkenazi and Sephardi Jews. There was a huge immigration of Russian Jews. The Sephardic and Mizrahi population were Jews from Iraq and other Arab countries.
Was there tension between these immigrant groups? Discrimination?
In my family experience, there was none. I think that some feels differently, depends where, but I never felt nothing but support. It was all merit-based, like I was never stopped professionally or academically because I'm from a different origin. The Moroccan Jews were the biggest community among the Jews who weren't from Europe or America. The Moroccan Jews came late and they were scattered in small towns in the south. I think that specifically for those from Morocco and Ethiopia, the victimhood atmosphere could be strong.
I think a lot of people who've never been here may not understand that a large percentage of the Israeli Jewish population is not descended from Europeans.
Yes, so 50% of the Jewish population in Israel today came from Eastern Europe, Russia, Western Europe, and 50% are from the Arab countries, and also Ethiopia.
There is, of course, a significant part of the Israeli population that isn't Jewish. They're Palestinian Arabs. They make up about 20% of the total population of Israeli citizens. Combine that with Jews originally from the Arab countries and Ethiopia, and well over half of the Israeli people are not tied to Europe or America.
True.
For a lot of people, that is simply not known.
Yeah, because it's fashionable to describe the Israeli experience as a colonialist effort. Israel is their home for many Jews that had no place to go. After the Second World War, the Jews were scattered all over the place. It is a myth that Jews had a wonderful time in Arab Muslim countries. They were second-tier civilians. Their life, their assets, the career potential was arbitrary. Everything could have been taken from them, and there's no judicial system that will protect them.
The reason Jews moved here from Iran, Iraq, Morocco, Ethiopia, and so on is similar to the reason Jews left Europe. It was largely because of persecution.
There is much of that, but there is more to this. I think that every Jew, whether traditional, religious, or secular, the concept, the dream of going back to Jerusalem was always there. And once that option opened up, I think there was no doubt for many of them. They were living in places where they were always second-tier, maybe third-tier citizens. They had to pay special tax, couldn't get any job in the government, couldn't get any job in the military. Their life was limited. So if you were offered a place where actually it gives you an opportunity, you go. Also very important, in Israel, you were not always feeling separate the other person. To be among other Jews, and you go to the cinema and many of the people around you are Jewish, and there is no tension, no stress. It is nice, feel comfortable.
What has been your path in Israel?
I have a a BA in Middle East Studies and Economics. I have a second degree in Public Policy and Transportation Economics. I worked for the Israeli Ministry of Finance for 12 years. I was in charge of constructing state-owned enterprise for specific projects and privatizing state-run enterprises.
How did you get steered in this direction?
I didn't have any mentoring. My parents were not educated, but it all came out pretty well without it. I saw an ad in a paper that were looking for young economists in some division in the Ministry of Finance, and I applied, and that's it.
I assume you were in the military?
Yeah, I was in the military for 4 years. I was an officer in the artillery force.
You're finished with the reserves now. You've been through all that.
Yes, before the war. After the Ministry of Government job, I was CEO of a city development company. And now I'm in the private sector, and I'm doing real estate development.
Is there private land in Israel, or is it all owned by the government?
About 94% of the land in Israel belongs to the government.
We passed a kibbutz coming here. Does the kibbutz own the land?
The land belongs to the government, but it was leased in a contract for 100 years for the kibbutz. The people that are working this land cannot decide tomorrow that they will build a shopping mall there. They would not be allowed.
By whom?
By the Israeli government.
So this is a socialist country.
What is your definition for socialist?
Socialist would mean government control, government ownership. Could be all or partial. In China, for example, virtually 100% of the land is owned by the government. But people can buy and sell property on that land. Houses, condos, can have their own businesses.
If this is the definition for socialism, yes, okay. Our economic system is capitalist, free enterprise. People can own their home like I do, have their own business like I work in.
Driving around, we see a lot of development going on. Where's most of the activity these days?
Israel has a huge demographic growth, and so basically every year we have another 250,000 people needs to live somewhere.
Where are these 250,000 people coming from?
Natural growth and some immigration. Because I just listened to a lecture by an expert in electricity. Ireland has the same population as Israel, like around 10 million. And he says every year they have 2,000 new customers for the electrical company. We have 70,000. The amount of growth in infrastructure to support the demographic growth is incredible. We need 60,000 units, apartments every year just to deal with the natural growth.
Are these financed by real estate investment trusts? How are these things financed?
There's a lot of money in Israel, and a lot of it goes to real estate. A big chunk of the stock market is real estate companies. In my company, our goal is to build 300 units every year. Land here is very expensive. It influences everything. You go to a restaurant, the restaurant is paying very high rent on the property. It's like a whole chain of economic impact from the prices of land because everything is so dense there. Israel can be too socialist, yes. The ultra-Orthodox society here that is being heavily subsidized by the government, and they're turning their very fast population growth into political power that in turn gets them even more social benefits. It's like a circle that I really, really hope is going to end, especially with the war and the other conflicts, with the public anger for the fact that they're also not serving in the military. The ultra-Orthodox are presenting one of the most risky statistical problems for Israel.
This is a topic I know we'll be getting into when we bring you and everyone else together at our forum next week. I'm going to hold on it for now and ask you this. How does a real estate developer do his work in Israel, a socialist country?
Not only does the government control most of the land in the country, it also holds the planning authority. So if they want to change zones from agriculture to residential or business district or any power plants or whatever you need, it has to go through committees and tons of regulations. It's mostly too much bureaucracy and regulation that makes it extremely hard to do business. Like this land that I'm developing now, I can't do anything here without permission from the government and from the local municipalities.
How has high tech been able to succeed so well in Israel?
Oh, it's intellectual property. They don't need approvals, they don't need land.
Do you use AI in your work?
I
AI
use it
tools?
a little bit. In Israel, the real estate data is not coded and it's in Hebrew. But I see AI in architecture. You can see that getting there rapidly and it's growing. It will influence all of us.
When did family come into the picture?
Julia and I got married in 2004.
Do you have 4 kids?
True, 4 kids. Thank God, yeah.
I'm curious what it's like to raise a child in tech-savvy Israel. I'm thinking about social media, digital games.
Well, screens are a huge issue. And there's always a lot of tension around screens. You have to give them phones so they'll be in touch. So we know they're fine. But we are trying to postpone screens, push it the furthest we can. Like our youngest one is almost the only kid in his 4th grade class that doesn't have a cell phone. And it hurts him socially.
What is he saying to you?
Get me a phone, because it's not fair.
So what's going to happen?
Next year. I'm telling you, it's really, really hard. Also, getting them to read. We insist on the fact that they will read and have a book with them at all times. It's a different generation. They consume information in a different way.
What do your kids talk about what they're interested in doing?
Well, in Israel, kids at their age, they don't think about what they want to do in their lives. They actually think about what they want to do in the army. They know that the army is coming. In the U.S., you prepare yourself for college life. Here, you prepare for what to do in the military. My oldest children are 16 and almost 15. They think a lot about what they want to do in the army. I think it's a huge gift they get. And as a parent, it's extremely scary. You know, that reserve soldiers that try to commit suicides in this war. And we have thousands of soldiers that are injured, and that's without the post-trauma. No one wants war. It's terrible. You pray that there won't be any big military event when they are serving. And after they finish it, they also have reserve duty for another 15, 17 years. Depends on what they do in the military. So it's a big part of their life. What I'm trying to tell them is, it's not just the military, it's everything. Whatever you do it with the most professional way you can do. Like, be really the best in it. I tell them the amount of stress that I was under when I was in the military prepared me for life more than anything I experienced in life. Okay, now we eat.
This chicken is fantastic. What do you put on it?
That's the spices. Israelis love spices.
Sensational. Let me ask you, Nissim, if you could change one thing in the world, in Israel, in your family life, your community, what would it be?
A friend asked me, what do you hope for your kids, Oksana? I said, I hope they would lead happy life and productive life and help the community. And that's what I would hope for everybody.
Tel Aviv, wow.
Doesn't this remind you of China?
Yep, that was my first reaction. Look at the national birds.
The cranes.
Yeah, the Israeli national bird. Look at that. Development, the growth has been spectacular. This little schmutz of a country puts together a place like this. A lot of the companies here, Israeli companies, of course, but big Japanese companies and some of the European, Americans. I think the Chinese have some big companies here. Such a different look from Jerusalem, only 45 minutes away.
The two cities don't like each other.
They don't like, well,
No, it's a little bit like New York and Boston.
it's like New York in every place.
On one hand, we have a rich history that's represented in Jerusalem. On the other hand, we have modern Jewish life. This is Tel Aviv. The city of Zionism is Tel Aviv. The people that established Tel Aviv was Zionists from the second Aliyah. And they named their city after the Theodor Herzl book, Old New Land. Herzl is the founder of political Zionism. His book is visionary novel about future Zionist state, a utopia. He got many of the things right and many of the things wrong.
We got a wind coming off the Mediterranean. Woohoo! You know, Tel Aviv has distinctive panoramas as you approach from inland from the direction of Jerusalem. You know, all those skyscrapers and tall condos. You can get the impression, as I did, that's pretty much what the city's about. But it's not. There's a big part of the city that's charming, with older buildings and a lot of cafes. Real cafe life here. Mediterranean kind of feel. It's late on the eve of the Sabbath and the streets are fairly empty, but this beach is not. Oh no, these are tourists like me, or secular Israeli Jews. I'm on this promenade that seems to go for miles. The very eastern end of the Mediterranean Sea. Out there you go past Cyprus and Greece and Italy and France and Spain and into the Atlantic. Coming up on a bar scene here. It is packed. Could be Florida, California, the Gulf Coast, but with a Mediterranean flair. My goodness, it's black. A whole part of it's been destroyed downtown. An Iranian missile or missiles must have hit here. There's destruction these weapons cause. It just doesn't hit home until you see it firsthand. I'm outside Hostage Square, and there's this tall building. Looks fairly new, or residential, maybe it's condominiums. An Iranian missile struck it. And there's a whole section of it that's blackened, and the whole building is empty. Clearly, nobody's living in there. It might have been aiming at Hostage Square. It's only a couple of blocks away, but maybe at the Israeli Defense Force headquarters, it's just on the other side of that building. Really, even closer. I remember seeing on TV the trails of missiles coming in over Tel Aviv, and some striking the city in gigantic flashes, and makes me shudder. I can only imagine the terror here and in Ukraine and in Gaza. Just what happens with a flash in a moment, and all changes. Hostage Square, this vast space of memorials to the hostages taken on October 7th, and soldiers and civilians lost in the war. I was here a couple of months after October 7th. It was a rainy, chilly evening, big solemn crowd. The klezmer band was trying to lighten things up. There was this makeshift tunnel, sort of mimicking the sounds of war above, and the claustrophobia below, trying to capture a sense of what the hostages were living in. I mean, so many of them had been taken into the tunnels under Gaza. Faces of the hostages were everywhere. So quiet, so unusual for Israelis, particularly a crowd of Israelis, to be so quiet. On this day, the square is nearly empty. Still the memorials, but the last of the hostages have been returned after 2 years, either alive or their remains. I wonder what will become of this place. It's be packed up and restored to the everyday city crossroads it was. The Tel Aviv Art Center is here, the symphony. Will they place something here permanently, attempting to convey the wounding, the anguish, defiance, anger of this country in a moment of time, this forever embattled piece of the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is not Venice Beach, Los Angeles. This is Jaffa, Tel Aviv. Laid back, charming, people on their bicycles. We're in a cafe. Hello, Noah.
Hello.
Noah, are you a Sabra?
Yeah, I think you can call it that. I was born in Israel and both of my parents both born in Israel. My father's side came from Ukraine, from Odessa specifically, and my mom's side is from Tunisia.
Your parents, did they meet here?
Yep.
Are you Noah like in the Bible?
No art for me. I am spelled just N-O-A, a different person. The woman that was the elder sister from a family that only has sisters, only girls. And when the father died, they were in the middle of the Exodus, these 40 years in the desert. And by the rule of the ancient Jewish nation, the women, they don't get anything. No land, no money, no fame, nothing. So Noah, the elder one, she went to Moses and told him, you know what? That's not fair. And he said, you know what? It isn't. Let me speak with God for a minute and I will come back to you with an answer. And then they changed the rule. It was a little bit better because they could have some money, some property until they will get married, and then the property, of course, will move to their husbands, but yet they could have something. So that's a nice story. I love it.
And what's your story? Did you grow up with a heavy Arab influence?
No. All I know about Arab culture, I learned from my home and my daily life. I am coming from a half Tunisian family that can speak Arabic. This café that belongs to a woman named Amira, she's an Arab from Jaffa. We can speak Arabic and Hebrew with each other. I can hear Arabic and Hebrew the whole day sitting in this cafe. In Israel, we call it sometimes Mizrahi Jews. We can talk about the way the Mizrahi people were treated. Mizrahi Jews, they come from Yemen, Tunisia, Morocco, India even. Three main groups, Ashkenazi, Sephardic, Mizrahi, also have Ethiopians and Russians. So Mizrahi people came here between the 1950s and the 90s. My family specifically came here at the year 1950, right after Israel created. We have a lot of pride in it. I know all the story of my grandmother and grandfather coming here on the ship, and everything, and living in tents. It's a complicated story involving pride and love and anger and hate and shame. I have so many hard stories about the way they treated my grandmother. But on the other hand, I have these beautiful stories about how she felt she's coming to the place she was dreaming about for years. Great stories about how she felt like she's part of something huge that happens in the Jewish history.
These would be stories of maybe some level persecution as a Mizrahi Jew, being treated as maybe something less than an equal citizen.
Yeah, something less. I think during the period my mom was a child, it was less nuance. Today it's much more nuance.
At some point you wanted to devote yourself to issues of inequality, of discrimination.
It happened over time. Living in different places and traveling. It started when I was living in an Arabic city near the border of Lebanon. I loved it. I felt like I belonged. Then I went into the army, learned from many different Israeli people. And after that, I traveled to many places, learned many cultures.
You had many formative experiences, traveling to different parts of the world. And at a point, you were back in Israel.
Yeah.
And you are starting to direct yourself toward where you are now.
I had decided I was going to be a journalist. I wrote a message on Facebook to a group of school friends. Does anyone know any job in journalism? And soon I had a job in a news TV channel. I was working with the reporters and producing, researching. And during this time, there was a story that came to me. One of the kids from this boarding school gone missing. He was Ethiopian. I discovered a huge story about police brutality. This kid, he was sitting with his friend drinking beers in the evening, and there were two police officers that tasered him with no reason, and they left him outside the police station. It wasn't conscious at all. I went with this story to my editor, and she was like, it's a non-story. So I went to a alternative news media.
It's an online publication.
Yeah. They told me how to write it and what I need to do to, fact checks and everything. And we published this story in this alternative news outlet, which no one knew. And it was crazy. There was demonstrations all over the country.
Did you get to the bottom of why the police took them and why they did what they did?
Just bullying. Yeah, it was
Just
just
bullying.
bullying. And these policemen, they lost their jobs.
And you were launched as somebody who was willing to go out and cover some of the darker sides of what's going on in society.
And the crazy thing about it is that a week later, the channel I used to work for, they published this story. And that's how I understood the power of alternative media.
How did your career evolve from there?
Politically correct, this is the place I work today. They were looking for volunteers.
Politically correct.
Politically correct, in Hebrew, it's kind of a game. It's female to female, like politically shouting, politically reading. We're well known. We are very political and very activist, feminist. We also do journalism.
You were starting to focus as a feminist activist.
Yep. And then after a while, they were looking for editor-in-chief. And I was like, no, I'm not good enough for that. And then the founder, she called me and they're like, are you crazy? We're waiting for you.
Come on, kids, wake up.
Yeah.
Opportunity knocks.
Yeah. So I took that, and that's my life for the past 8 years. And we have our, ups and downs. We're looking at everything through our feministic eyes. Politically correct is a very radical place, but also a very mainstream place. Most of the people on the street, when you tell them politically correct, they will hear something about it. It's like, we're not well known, but we're known. Khulud. This is our Palestinian partner. She's the CEO of ILAM, which is another organization.
Hi, I'm Jim.
Yeah.
Pleasure. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Yeah. Okay, I'm going. So, Chaim.
Bye-bye.
We have like a partnership, Palestinian and Israelis. And we started 1 year before the war. And it was amazing because we managed to do it. We developed a very unique, how do you say that? Like a program of teaching women to be journalists.
This was connecting the Israeli Jewish side with the Israeli Palestinian side.
Also Palestinians, it's like outside from the borders of Israel.
So the West Bank?
Yeah, it's very unique because each of the groups has their own outlet to publish and has their own unique way that we teach them. But they also have places that they meet and talk and, experience together and exploring journalism together. Mm-hmm. And it was very good that we started it before the war because when the war started, the 7th of October, we were kind of ready. We knew our feminist point of view.
We've been hearing about the breakdown between the Israeli Jewish and the Israeli
and Palestinian non-Israeli side.
Very complicated, particularly if you're not from Israel. I'm curious about how you made it work. You are the kind of person who can meld because of your own life experience, but that's not how the average Israeli Jew or average Palestinian may feel. They don't usually connect.
So your description was very good. We're walking right into that. People are frightened to speak about things sometimes because it's not politically correct. One of the things that we always say that you don't leave the room, no matter what will be said in that room, even if you don't feel safe, even if you feel like you've been hurt, you don't leave the room. You continue the conversation because when you stop the conversation, that's when the violence starts.
Give me a sense of some of the topics within the room. What have you been working through? What have you been reporting on?
In this program, we started by giving everyone the opportunity to put out on the table their identity and the way they see things and the way they see the world and their point of view and everything. And after that, we separate and come back. That's the movement we're doing. The first year, which was before the war, was easier. These years of war have been much harder. Okay, so let's put this program aside. Just talk about our work, journalistic work in Politically Correct. All the women that working and volunteering in Politically Correct, they always speaking about politics in Palestine, Israel, occupied territories, non-occupied, or whatever. And also we share our civil journalism, which goes to violence towards women and to gender-based violence. In general, we redefine the relationship between, all parts of society, especially men, women. So one of the good examples for that was the Erez Rodriguez story. Erez Rodriguez is a famous actor in Israel. The story was that he used to take advantage of women on Facebook. A woman wrote an article that had a lot of testimonies about women that really heard from him. It wasn't only intimate messages, but also like he was promising them he will help them
If they do favors.
Yeah, stuff like this. And they were all very young. So this woman went to all kinds of newspaper and they were telling her, this is not a story. And then she came to me. And I was like, it's a very important story about how you speak with young women when you have power. So we did that story. I have to say, this actor guy responded well. He was taking responsibility, trying to get the forgiveness of the victims and stuff, apologizing. It was a huge story. Our website collapsed because it wasn't built for 100,000 people 1 minute. It was crazy.
This kind of journalism, this kind of reporting was not being done in Israel?
No, we started it, let's say. Now it's coming. It's coming a lot. We're not the only one doing that at all.
How do you think this has altered women's perceptions of their relationships with men? Do you get feedback on that?
Mostly people asking about the specific guy. And that's a good question. It opens the discussion. I always say in my lectures, I don't care about him, I care about them. We have a lot of stories like this. And the women who experience this kind of things, they are like, okay, now I understand what happened to me. Now I understand it wasn't my fault. Now I understand that I'm not just a crazy woman. Something happened to me, and now I can deal with that. So we get a lot of emails and feedbacks like that. We kind of give words to the non-spoken experience. But the situation during the war was crazy. We can't really hear and see what's going on because you're concentrated on the war, and 7th of October stories, they keep coming out, and Gaza stories, they keep coming out. And this woman which have a bad relationship with the man that hits her or whatever, you can't hear her.
Drowned out.
Yeah. We're trying to understand, what should we do post-war? What's our mission now? It's hard to understand because still you have these war stories, they keep coming out, and it will keep coming out.
Has the war caused a breakdown in cooperation among Jews and Palestinians in your program?
Yeah. I mean, there have always been some cultural differences, but I have to say it's less than you think. The Jewish Israeli and Palestinian Israeli today, it's not so different anymore, but there are still some differences. I mean, you can have Jewish Israelis, some of them that came to our program were queers, and they might have purple hair. And there's Palestinians, they were like, what the fuck? And you have Palestinian women coming with hijab, and praying and looking at the Quran as something that is good for them. And I will never say that it's not. I mean, who am I to say that? But our more religious Israeli Jewish women in our group are maybe not so comfortable with that.
You're searching for your mission. Where are you with that?
It's hard to say. During the war, I was telling the women in our group that we need to be the voice for the voiceless. For example, the hostages. They were a big story in our newspaper. We were talking about it all the time, even though they were mostly men at the end. But then you ask about what's going on in Gaza. Should we bring these Palestinian voices? And if we bring that voices, different kind of women read us. A lot of people from the Israeli right read us. And if you say something about Gaza, they might stop reading you. So it's like you always walk on this very thin line, but also we think about ourselves as a radical newspaper. So we want to say the things, we don't want to ignore them. And we want the Palestinian women to feel safe and to feel part of this group. And then I'm always telling them not to nullify my Zionism, that if you take Zionism out of my family, we have nothing left. I mean, Zionism is very important. For my family, it brings us to Israel, give us a better life. But for Palestinians, Zionism is very, very hard concept. For them, Zionism is the enemy. How can we work together? But as I said before, we don't leave the room. We dive into that. We speak about it. When you stop talking, then the violence starts. And sometimes we get very bad comments.
When you say very bad comments, what's the nature of that?
It can be like just people writing evil things. Also private messages to the writer, because we give the name of the writers, of course. But the scariest thing we experienced was during the beginning of the war. A lot of Palestinian women got arrested for posts that they posted online, or sometimes even they could, talk with someone on chat. She could say something that is controversial, and a person will do like a screenshot and send it to the police. We wrote about it, and we wrote that you have to pay attention. It's mostly women, and they were being very humiliated.
But you don't face any direct censorship. The censorship would come from losing audience. So you have to self-censor.
So that's what I'm saying. After we published one story, they took a screenshot and said that
yeah,
they're encouraging violence, they hate the IDF, they are anti-Zionists, blah, 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 blah. And that was scary, because we saw how they arrest women for saying something wasn't even violence, something just controversial. This word.
And have you had any threats personally?
Not me, because I'm not writing a lot, I'm editing. The writers, they get it a lot. And we're doing our best to help them with that. But you tag someone, and then people just go inside his Facebook page and just writing direct message, you are blah, 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 blah. And yeah, that's scary.
Do you think that over time the wounds will be less open and people will be able to speak more openly about these things with less emotion?
I think that every time that the wounds get closed, something happened and it's reopened. We cannot stop speaking, we must speak. Again, I will say the opposite of speaking is hitting each other.
You're meeting with people, you're talking. What sort of groups are you involved with?
Mostly women that are like peace builders. They are not extreme one way or other, want to see people try to understand, come together. It's very nice because they always tell us how they like to read us. Before the war, I used to speak with the youth. I used to go to many places, talking about journalists, how to be a journalist, how to make a feminist journalism, what is a feminist journalism, but now not so much. Maybe it's because of political issues, but I mostly think that it's because no one has the money to bring lectures anymore. I apologize for all the noise. I wanted to meet at a coffee place near my home, but it was destroyed by Iranian rocket.
Near your home? Were you there?
We were sleeping, and I don't go to the shelter when I'm sleeping because nothing will wake me up. A neighbor tells us it is Iranian rockets, not Hamas. Iranians, they know what they're doing. We go to the shelter now. I live in a building that has Russians, Arabs, Jewish, whatever. A lot of dogs also. We were all together in the shelter, and there was this huge boom, and there was dust coming down, and it's quiet after the big boom. And two people ran inside our shelter, and they were like, you got hit by a rocket. It was very, very scary, mostly. We were hugging and stuff like this. We got out, and we saw that the building is okay. But the building in front of us got direct hit. There were a lot of people killed there.
I'm wondering if this is the shot we saw on TV. There's methyl, and then boom, this huge explosion, and then we're learning afterward that it fell in a residential area, many people were killed. And they showed it over and over again.
I was feeling like a crazy person. And I went out to the street. All the pipes burst and water shoots all over. And all the windows were broken. And so many glasses on this, everywhere. People were just standing and looking And there are a lot of people that were the army took out from the building. They were sitting and waiting for their families and pets to be rescued. And I made bread and, just gave it away to the people outside. And later I wrote a story about it. I want to say something about covering the war. We had some struggles with that. We didn't know what to say, what not to say. But then we found our solution in the way we always approach our stories. For example, we were the only one that could cover Bedouin women, because the press have mostly male interviewer Bedouin. Women will not speak to them. And they need to also take pictures. And they were like, if you don't want us to take a picture of you, it's okay. And then that's how we're the only ones that interviewed the widow of Amr Abu Savila, which saved 2 kids on the 7th of October. It was a huge story. He got killed by Hamas, but he saved 2 Israeli very young kids, which their parents were killed. We met his widow, and we felt like we are able to bring the voice to the people that otherwise can't be out there. And she has a very important story that we told with our feminist ethics. Our feminist ethics guide us through the war. We understood that we are speaking with people that got hurt. We're speaking with people that the control went out of their hands completely, all control about their lives. So we'll give them the control in the story. We interview them in their own place, in their own terms, and we also give them their part of the story before we publish it. This is how we operate before the war. During the war, we understood that we need to work with it. For example, this young man was kidnapped to Gaza and got killed, murdered by Hamas. He was in Be'eri.
That's where we were. We went there the other day. So much horror happened there.
Yeah, we all know of Be'eri. He saw his mother and father killed.
Oh my goodness.
And they took him to Gaza, and one day they just killed him. His sister, I saw her on TV, and I said, I have to speak with that woman. And she gave me a lot of insight to understand how do we need to speak with the families of hostages in feminist ethics. Because they are, they have this psychological terror from Hamas, but also from the Israeli government. You don't push her into a box. You're not controlling. You're letting her get it out and tell her own story in her way. I'm not trying to put her in my narrative.
I better finish up here. Can you do this?
Yep. Was working about it for years.
All right, with the snap of a finger, you can change one thing in the world, in Israel, or your personal life. So what would it be?
I would make the Middle East like Europe with open borders, and I will go on a trip with my car to everywhere here around.
Can Jeff and I go with you?
Of course.
I want to ask about this. What is that one?
That's my engagement ring.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh, hey, Mazel Tov.
Thank you for listening to episode 2 of Israeli Voices, Who We Are. Many, many thanks to Nassim Salomon and Noah Borstein. You'll find out more about Nassim and Noah in our show notes. In episode 3, Roots of the Provocative Slogan, From the River to the Sea, and how Jews and Palestinians in Israel identify themselves and each other. A chilling cemetery interlude, a tech student's dream at the Technion, Israel's MIT, walking in Haifa seeking connections between Palestinians and Jews. Citizen Arts is a not-for-profit 501c3 educational organization that seeks to present constructive, compelling information, ideas, and opinions about important civic, social, and cultural matters. We very much welcome your feedback. Dear listeners, please stay healthy in mind and body, wealthy in goodwill, and wise in action. I'm Jim Gabe, Citizen Arts founder. Jill Gabe is executive producer. Jeff Lewis is producer and artistic director. Hillik Wald is our Israel field producer.